in this beautiful city of yours. I had seen your city from Google Earth several times, but this is the first time to be here in bone and flesh. I will cut my presentation short and leave the ground to your questions and to your suggestions. The topic of my presentation can be misunderstood. It's not Turkey and the restructuring of Middle Eastern regimes by Turkey. It is how Turkey will be influenced and what Turkey thinks about the restructuring of Middle Eastern regimes by the powers coming from beneath, by the powers coming from the street. I won't be giving a speech that starts, that has an introduction and an end. I will just try to give you some views from recent developments in Middle Eastern politics, in Turkish foreign policy, and speak about certain principles of the newly emerging Turkish foreign policy, and help you to understand what is going on in the Middle East and in Turkey's foreign policy. First of all, let me underline that I didn't come here to advocate any particular position, let alone the foreign policy decisions of the Justice and Development Party government in Turkey. I have been critical of certain policies, especially the policies of Justice and Development Party government about Turkish-Israeli relations. I have been critical of the language used in foreign policy platforms. So I'm not a representative of the Turkish government here. But if you want to attack a Turkish personality, do it, please, and we will come to a point to understand each other. Turkey is changing. Turkey is changing together with the world. Many people thought that 9/11 was the beginning of the 21st century and it was the end of history to some extent. Francis Fukuyama believed that as the humanity has reached to culmination of the development of human understanding of themselves and the world and God, liberal capitalism is the final stage, or the Geist, a German contest would say, Hegelian philosopher would say, we have reached already the Geist, so the history has come to an end, Francis Fukuyama had said. My particular understanding of the issue was that the Islamic world has turned back to the history. Between the First World War, which was the beginning of the 20th century, and 9/11, the Muslim world was anachronistic. I wouldn't say Turkey was fully within this stumbling block of historical development. Thanks to our close relationship with Europe and European way of thinking, we have had advantages of understanding that the world is evolving and changing, and that we didn't come to an end in history. But the First World War had taken almost all of the hope from the Muslim world, and the Muslim world, from the very individual level to the state level, has come to an understanding that things will never change. In fact, in the 19th century, there was a beautiful Arab saying, well, Arabs continued to say it up until today, dawamul hal muhal, meaning the continuance of the recent situation is impossible. Things will certainly change. But they didn't change for the last 50 years. I was in Qatar for some business meetings with Qatari television network Al Jazeera, and I met two beautiful people there, smart young Egyptians, a married couple actually. Both could be the best television anchors in their countries, but they had to flee to Qatar to find a future for themselves. And I asked, why didn't you continue on your career in Egypt? And the lady said, my father died promising and saying us that one day Mubarak will die, you know, and we will have freedom. I don't want to say the same lie to my children. This guy won't pass away, she said. You know, we will all die, and he will going to be ruling over the country. Well, in fact, we are not still sure that he passed away. He is there. The regime is still there, but things are changing. Things are changing, and there is great possibility that smart Egyptians that had to flee their countries will return back to restructure the regime, the lifestyles of their own countries. So things are changing. Muslim world is once again in the train that we call history. And this train is faster than the train of the 20th century. Change will come even in a faster pace than we are expecting. In fact, Zain al-Abidin bin Ali left his country, the former dictator of Tunis, within 3 days. This was something unexpected even to the protesters. The same can be said about Hosni Mubarak. On the 17th day of the protests, he left his position, and most of the youngsters were not expecting that success in such a short time. So most of them were unprepared for what we will do after he leaves. That is the point where they need guidance and help, outsider guidance and help. And that is one of the points that Turkey can help to those countries. Turkey is also changing. Turkey is also changing. With the coming of Justice and Development Party, from now on I will call just AK Party, to governance in Turkey in year 2002, Turkey has realized that it has more potential to contribute to the change, not only in the Muslim world, but in the world in general. And Turkey has started to pursue several new foreign policy objectives. Some of those things you may have already heard. For example, I assume you have heard already about the zero problems with neighbors policy. Well, this is not a creation of our new intellectual Professor Ahmet Davutoğlu, the new foreign minister of Turkey. This is in fact a European Union condition to become a European Union member. European Union says that you should have zero problem with your neighbors before you become a member of the European Union. But it worked. The point is, in my childhood, when we were educated or indoctrinated by the official state regime in Turkey, we were told that Turkey is a country that is surrounded by at 3 sides with seas and at 4 sides with enemies. So we didn't have neighbors, we had enemies, and the sea itself is a dangerous thing also, if you are not, swimming good, like me. So for my understanding, we were all around, surrounded by enemies. Bulgaria and Greece were certainly enemies, and there was a fact to this claim. You know, in Bulgaria, I remember in 1980s, Turkish minority there, they were forced to change their Turkish names and denounce their Turkish ancestry. With Greece, we have, the 100-year-old problem of the Greek islands that are very close to the Turkish seashore, and also the Cyprus issue. Syria was an enemy because we had with them the issue of the city of Hatay which used to be a Syrian territory until 1939. Then autonomous republic was established there, and the republic decided to join to Turkey with referendum. And also we had rivers, downflowing rivers problem with both Syria and Iraq, because the dams that we were building in southeastern Turkey, eastern and southeastern Turkey, we were holding the waters, and they needed, badly those waters, and we had that problem with those countries also. With Iraq, we have always had the problem of the Kurdish infiltrators, separatist infiltrators from northern Iraqi Kurdistan. This term only we can use this term only recently. In the past, you wouldn't hear any Turk there to call that land Kurdistan. With Armenia, all our basic problem. Armenia is still stuck in 1915, stuck within the genocide claims, and we are hoping to drag them back to history together with the Muslim world, I hope. With the Soviets, of course, we had the enmities that were left behind from the bipolar world system of the Cold War. And anyhow, yes, we were, Iran was certainly an enemy because of sectarian differences between us as Sunni, the most powerful Sunni state, Turkey, and the most powerful Shiite state as Iran. We had sectarian problems. We were so enemies with each other that we didn't dare to fight for the last 300 years, because we knew that any fight between us would be the end of both countries. So in my childhood, we were educated that Turks do not have friends. Any people who were educated in Israel, for example, or with an Israeli mentality, would understand me better. The whole world is against us. This is a classical Israeli, or I would say Likudnik education system that was relevant to the Turks also. The whole world is against us. And there is no way that we would cooperate with the world. And whatever bad happened in our country, domestic issues, we will certainly have, either Israeli Jewish lobbyists behind it, or European enemies that are against us, because they were afraid that if those Turks who have had established the Ottoman Empire in the past once again rise to power, they will come. This time they have already enough collaborators in Vienna, and they don't have the Vienna walls, of course, So we will just sweep the whole Europe and make it Turkified and Islamicized. So this is an interesting mentality. There is fear in it, but also there is a baseless honor on it. Why the whole world is against us? Because we are superhumans. This was basically the Turkish understanding of the world. Despite this main understanding of the whole world is against us, we were not dealing with the whole world. We were just, we had just divided the whole world into two, us versus them, which is a neoconservative understanding of the world here also. So you may know the same symptoms here if you have had read our good friend Bernard Lewis. We didn't study the world. We didn't know about how many countries is this whole world is. We have established diplomatic relations with Pacific states only in year 2003, because we needed their votes in United Nations Security Council membership, temporary membership vote. And suddenly we realized that there are 50 countries there, and we didn't have any diplomatic relations with them, despite the fact that we had Turkish schools in most of those countries. So the people had went to those countries before the state went. Helped the old regime continue on its life. And we have been observing almost similar manners in most of the dictatorships in the Arab world. And Syrians believe that they are actually the strongest state in the world and the whole world is against them. And Jordanians believe they have the best king in the world and the whole world is against them. So this is changing. This has already changed in Turkey. And I myself, for example, tested this with my daughter. Well, unfortunately, she does not know who are our neighbors, but she knows that they are not our enemies. She's not well educated, she is Facebook educated, and but at least in the Facebook, there is nothing that says, you know, the whole world is against us, you know. So things are changing in Turkey. The AK Party government came as a result of these changes to power. One of the major change that happened in Turkey and in most of the Muslim countries is a social mobilization within the country that has two dimensions, one horizontal and one vertical. Starting in 1980s, Turkish population from the rural areas started to move to the urban centers. This is something that Europe passed through in the end of the 19th century, and similar things happened here also around the same times. So we passed through that urbanization change only in 1980s, thanks to our late President Turgut Özal. This of course changed our understanding of the world. And the people that were living in the rural areas realized that there were rich people who were actually rich despite their poornesses. In spite of their poornesses, then they realized that in fact their resources were usurped by those rich people to become richer and richer, and they got poorer and poorer in return. So the periphery started to move to the center by the 1980s. I myself am, you know, a member of that generation of mobility, geographic mobility. You know, I was born in a northeastern city called Samsun, a small city where I was born in a village. Then I moved to the city Samsun to study in the high school, and then moved to Istanbul to study in the university. Most of the people who started to move, usually you cannot stop them. They continue on moving. And I moved to Israel, then to London, and I have been traveling all around the world since then. This mobility has brought us a new understanding of the world. This is one basic dimension of the new Turkish foreign policy. Another mobility was upward mobility. You know, the people who moved from rural areas to the urban cities, they didn't stay as the villagers or as undereducated people. They started to look for a better education for at least for their children, for the next generation. My father was a teacher in a village school. He was a high school graduate. Then the high school graduates were able to teach in the primary school. As you have heard already, I'm trying to get my PhD in Durham University. I started it not as a philosophy PhD, but people told me if it takes more than 6 years, it will certainly become a philosophy doctorate. And it is becoming a philosophy doctorate. But my daughter, she already speaks 2 languages, you know, 2 foreign languages together with Turkish. So she will be better prepared for her future than me. She has already seen several countries, and in the summertime she wants to go to France and spend the time in France. So things are changing in Turkey by means of this mobilization. You have to take this into account. The second thing is, yes, the coming to power of AK Party changed some of our perceptions of what Turkey can do. One thing is you don't wait there for your enemy neighbors to become friend neighbors. You just go and enter into a productive dialogue with them that will turn them into friends. And the first success was, in fact, this was not an AK Party policy. This was induced by Ismail Cem, who was the foreign minister of the previous unsuccessful coalition government, but he was a successful foreign minister. He managed to convince the Greek foreign minister to come and dance with him, a classical Greek dance, which is also traditional in Turkey. We are the children of the same Mediterranean basin. Together with the Greeks and the Armenians. We eat the same things, we listen to the same music, and then we fight with each other. It's quite bizarre. But he managed to convince the Greeks to come and speak to each other, despite the fact that our problems with Greece, they are unsoluble. They cannot sell the whole islands to us. We cannot buy the south of Cyprus, and they cannot buy the north of Cyprus. We have to find a solution that no man was able to think in the past. Let me help you ease listening me. Well, I was 26 when I moved to Israel as an undereducated journalist. I was well educated to become a political scientist, but not a journalist. And a friend of mine arranged an interview with Shimon Peres. Today he is the president of the country, but then he was the president of the opposition. But he was always president. So in Tel Aviv I visited him, and I was so new and naive in the country that I was making plans of solving the problems between Israelis and the Palestinians. And okay, I made the interview, and in the end I said, Mr. Prime Minister, because he used to serve as a Prime Minister in the past, Mr. Prime Minister, forgive my naiveness, but I have a good plan to solve the problem, and he said, Kerim, did you tell this plan to anybody else? And yes, I said. And did they say to you, wow, a human being cannot think about this? No, I said. Oh, okay, it doesn't work then, he said. We thought of everything that human beings can think of. Go back home, and if one day you find a solution that a human being cannot think of, come, I will listen to you. I promise, he said. Okay. Well, Turkey and Syria found a solution that a human being wouldn't be able to think of in 1998. We were almost at the edge of a real war with Syria because they were hosting the leader of the separatist Kurdish party, PKK. He was living in Damascus, and we had 150,000 soldiers at the Syrian border. I was in Israel then, and the Israelis, well, in the end, Syrians had to tell the guy to leave the country. And the Israelis start to say, we have to speak Turkish also. It works. The fist is working. We were almost fighting. But today, Turkey and Syria are a part of a common market economy. We don't have visa regime between those countries. We don't have customs between these countries. Well, I am concerned about the future of the regime, and I am concerned about the fact that we have established such a common market economy with a dictatorship. I am concerned about this also. But in the end, the fact is this, you pass from Turkey to Syria. In the past, there were mine lands between the two countries. You pass to Syria with only your ID card, without any passport. Okay? And from there, you can continue on to Jordan and to Lebanon also. And Iraq is quite willing to join the same economic market. So this is something new. Well, this is something new in the Middle East. It is nothing new. It is already here in the United States. It was already in the European Union. Former enemies founded the best working peace project of the whole human history in the European Union. We are just imitating the same model in the Middle East. But this time it is working. It is working. No enemy policy has no problems with the neighbors policy has not yet given its fruits with Armenia, but we are hopeful. We are still hopeful that we will one day solve our problems. Well, the genocide issue seems to be an unsolvable issue, but one day we will find a solution that no human being can be thinking of. We will find that. Another new principle, let me say, that came to Turkish foreign policy with the Justice and Development Party is rhythmic diplomacy. Rhythmic diplomacy has several subtitles under it, but I may say the major issue is to turn Turkey into a kind of moderator, a country that moderates between the countries that are fighting or that have conflicts between them. We have seen how this worked between Afghanistan and Pakistan. It is working. We have seen how this worked in Iraq, in establishing, in keeping Iraq a unitary federal state, but continuing on to live in a peaceful country. Well, it is not over yet. It may be lost any time, but at least Iraqis are able to establish governments, and at least the Kurdish people living in the north are not declared enemies by the Sunnis and the Shiites altogether. We have not seen any kind of massacres yet in the north. We have seen how Turkey managed to help Saudi Arabia and Yemen come to table and speak about their problems, about the Shiite, Zaydi infiltrators that are coming and going. We have helped Sudan to peacefully pass through the referendum and separate into two countries that are not in war with each other. I wouldn't claim that Turkey did all this on its own. First of all, without European Union support and without the European Union membership prospect for Turkey, nobody will take Turkey serious. Middle Eastern countries are taking Turkey serious and seeing Turkey as a kind of bridge maker in between the Eastern and Western civilizations. This is working because we are a part of the West with a heart that is Eastern. I will quote Yehuda Levi, who wrote this beautiful poem about his longing for Jerusalem. Well, this is a sad poem. It was made as song also. He says in Hebrew, Libi b'mizrach ve'anochi besof mara, saying, my heart is in the east and I myself is at the west of the west, at the end of the west, because he was living in Spain. Well, Turkey is a kind of Yehuda Levi who is in the west but has an eastern heart, western mind and eastern heart. And it is working. One more point and I will finish my presentation and then I will take some questions. The next point is about some certain questions that has been discussed in the Western world, is about an axis shift or shift of axis in Turkish foreign policy. Many people discussed both in the United States and in Europe that Turkey with the AK Party has been shifting its axis of foreign policy from the west towards the east. Many people ask the question, who lost Turkey, or whether Turkey turned its back to West to the good of the Eastern Muslim countries. Here I will say the question has a legitimate basis, but the answer has a legitimate basis also. No. If ever Turkish leadership decides to leave its friendship with transatlantic or trans-European, let me say, European-American Western alliance, leave that alliance and become a member, even if a leader of the Muslim world, it will lose all its attractiveness to the Muslim world also. Turkey is attractive to the Muslim world because it is seen as a prospective European Union member, because it is seen as where Europe starts. The support to Turkey's European Union membership in Iraqi Kurdistan is higher than it is in Turkey. Because the Kurds living in Iraqi Kurdistan, they want to be neighbors with Europe. They want to be able to make trade with Europe. Because today they are making trade with Turkey, and they want to be a part of the peaceful coalition that Europe managed to forge in the last 50 years. So the power that the Turkish membership or alliance with the West is giving to Turkey is indispensable. We cannot give up from that power. But there is one fact that our European allies are not as willing as they used to be in the past to have Turkey a member of the European Union. There are several reasons why they are not as willing as they used to be. One reason is European Union is sick. It is the sick man of Europe now. The Europe itself is sick. Financially, it's not performing well. Socially, it has real problems. Well, most of those problems were not unforeseeable problems. They were foreseen problems, because when you start eliminating the nation state and create a supranational body, all these problems are foreseeable. Europe will one day, hopefully, overcome those problems, and as Turkey, we want to be a part of the solution of those problems. We want also to solve our own nation state problem together with Europe. If one day Europe becomes really a supranational body with one central body of foreign policy decision making in Brussels or in another city in Europe, and if Turkey is out, it will be almost impossible to take Turkey in afterwards, because we have also a belief in this nation-state system, which is a creation of the modernity, which is, I always say this, which was the worst mistake the modernity made, to turn Turkey, which is an inheritor of an empire, to turn it into a nation-state, which has more than 100 nationalities. This country shouldn't be a nation state. United States was the best example for us to endorse, but the leaders of Turkey were not knowledgeable about what's going on here. We were looking to Europe. We were seeing nation states emerging in Europe. So the leaders of the new republic thought that this was the best model for the modernization and for development. So we endorsed that model. This was a mistake for Turkey, and it will take some time before we get rid of the reflexes of a nation state. Turkey believes that if we have good relations in the Middle East, in Central Asia, with China, with India, that will give us more bargaining power in the eyes of the Europeans. And this is true. This is true. If we are not adding anything to Europe, if we are not offering any extra to European Union. Why should they take Turkey into the Europe? 70 million new citizens of Europe. Turkey will be the largest country by 2050 in the European Union if it becomes a member. Together with the Turks and Muslim minorities of the European Union countries, Turkey will have more than 100 parliamentarians in the European Union Parliament. So we will have Sarkozy as well. He will be old enough to speak about that, but we will have Sarkozy's lamenting the influence of France in Europe, and we will have Angela Merkel lamenting the old good days of Germany. If we are not adding extra, why they should give us Europe? So Turkey should give extra to the European Union. One particular thing that Turkey can give to Europe is its original multiculturalistic state. It is not an experiment in Europe as Merkel thinks, because she said the experiment with multiculturalism has failed. It's not an experiment. You don't do experiments with human beings. It is the fact of life, and it is a working fact of life in Turkey. I wouldn't suggest that all our history is a history of Adam and Eve in the heavens. Of course, we had the experiences of the fall from the heaven, but we had Satan also working in our history. But the overall Turkish history, both the Republican and the Ottoman history, is a pink, rosy picture by means of the minorities. I believe the Turkish experience will give something to Europe also in that sense. Turkey is not turning its back to Europe or to the United States, but the fact that Turkey has to deal more and more with the problems that are emerging in the European Union has been consuming some of its energies in the region. There were two major mistakes that the AK Party government did. One was the decision in the United Nations Security Council about sanctions on Iran. The no vote was imposed upon Turkey by Brazil, not by the Turkish decision-making system. The Turkish vote, I know personally very well, the Turkish vote was an abstaining vote together with Lebanon, but since Brazil was a partner in that process of bargaining with Tehran about nuclear enrichment capacities, Turkey had to change at the last moment its vote from abstaining to a no vote. This was a mistake. I always said this, I wrote this, you can find those in my articles. Of course, this has created in the West an image of Turkey becoming friend of Iran, an enemy of the modern Western world. We wouldn't like Azerbaijan to become a nuclear country also, or Georgia, or any other Middle Eastern country. Because of that, Turkey has become influential in the movement to no nuclear weapons in the Middle East. Within Israel? Well, that is one beautiful question. We are against Israel having nuclear weapons, also against, so this is clear. But we are in no position to impose this policy up to Israel. This is an issue that Israel needs to solve in itself together with its citizens. And of course, something about Israel is understandable. If you feel continuously under threat, and if you are such a tiny minor country in a sea of Arab nations, you always feel that necessity to have a power that will be more than the whole power of your neighboring countries. But this is no longer the Cold War era. The terms like deterrence is not working anymore. Second hitting capacity, it has no validity in this world. The world has changed. One man is an actor in foreign policy issues, in international policy issues. You know, that young man who actually burned himself in Tunis. Some international companies were also influential in changing foreign policy decisions of governments. In this 21st century, we have the individual, once again, becoming an actor in international policies. So we can find one day, I hope, well, Bibi Netanyahu is not that one, Libi Lieberman is not that one, but we can find one man in Israel that will change the history. It was a mistake to deteriorate the Turkish-Israeli relations, not because Israel is the best ally we can find in the region, but because Arab states need Turkey to speak to Israel. I will just go back to 1997, and I will, tell you my personal observation of what happened on that day. We had Mesut Yilmaz as the Prime Minister of Turkey, and he was very critical of the Turkish-Israeli military alliance. And he was saying, while he was in the opposition, he was saying that if he comes to power, he will actually cancel that agreement with Israel. When he came to power, he realized whenever you come from opposition to the governance, to the power, you realize the realities of the world, as Obama did here. You cannot just do whatever you promise. You know, there are other powers. So he realized the real power in Turkey, and nothing changed. But he came to Israel. He visited also late President of Palestine. This is our naming of him, Yasser Arafat. And I was there as a journalist, and he couldn't say anything, of course. Yasser Arafat, he wanted to speak. And he said, we need a country that can speak to Israel, because Israelis want the United States to be moderator in between us, but we don't trust the United States. This is what Yasser Arafat said. We want Egypt to mediate between us, but Israelis do not trust Egyptians. There is only one single country in the world that both countries can trust and both countries can speak to. This is Turkey. So we very much dare the Turkish-Israeli relations. It is to the good of Palestinians. One day we will establish a Palestinian state here on this land. We will have from time to time problems with Israel. We will need electricity. We will need water to buy from Israel. They will need natural gas to pass from Palestinian lands, from Egypt to Israel. And we will have problems, and we will then need a fair office that will help us solve our problems. This is what Yasser Arafat told about Turkish-Israeli relations. I believe that if Turkey has established itself as a moderator country, I don't wish to see any more enemies in the world. Israel is included within the countries that needs to stay on the map. So, well, their leaders are making mistakes. Our leaders made mistakes, and in this 21st century, the power is leaking, I would say, from the central organs to the civil society. Yes, politicians make mistakes, but the civil initiatives, they usually solve the problems, I will say. Thank you very much for your patience. Peace is the essential reality. War is always the accident or the exception. We have to come back to the human nature, which is peaceful. But I believe that the Turkish experience with democracy is also valuable to the Arab youngsters. They can learn not from our successes, but from our mistakes. We did a lot of mistakes. One major mistake was when we passed to a multi-party democracy in 1945, the single-party ruling mentality continued on within the bureaucracy as a deep state organ. Okay? And I am fearful, caring about Egypt, about Tunis, about Sudan, about Yemen, that even if the regimes change, the dictatorship mentality will continue on within the bureaucratic lines, within the army, within the judicial organs, within the press. Continue on ruling, really. Whenever a new party comes to power, they will realize that they can be governments, but they cannot govern. So this is our history of 50 years, starting from 1950, the year that we had an opposition party come to power. This is the first real experiment with multi-party democracy. In the year 2002, we realized that a government can govern also, despite the military, despite the judicial organs, despite the press, despite the presidents of the universities, despite all kinds of cultural institutions. If your cinema industry is at the hands of the dictatorship mentality, if your press is at the hands of the dictatorship mentality, then well, you may choose a new government, and it will come to realize that it is powerless. So I believe that the Arab world can learn a lot from our mistakes. Well, we did something good also. At least there is at the last 10 years, we have been working to get rid of the last pieces of those non-democratic powers that infiltrated, I would say, into the bureaucratic organs of Turkey, and that is a brave lesson, that not only the Arab world, to some extent to the Western countries also can take from Turkey. One major issue is this, is the world system of politics is not going to be any longer, with state organs. So it's not that you look at a state and hate it or love it, okay? Many people of your own nationality will be living in that state, as many Egyptians are living in the United States. And they are going to contribute both to the United States and to Egyptian democracies. You are working here, you are paying tax to the United States, you are contributing to the wealth and peace of this country. But when it comes, you fly to Egypt, you contribute to your own nation, okay? This is exactly like that. So Turkey is in the proximity of the region. We hope we will have more and more Ahmeds from Egypt. Look at our picture here, a small Turkish minority in Chicago, Illinois, organizing meetings, bringing, Americans, Democrats, and Republicans. I hope we are not all Democrats here. And the Arabs together. And speaking about one last point about my experience in Ireland. I have been quite active in Ireland about bringing the former sides of the struggle between the Protestants and the Catholics. They were trying to solve their social problems. Okay, political and military issue is over, but Catholics are not speaking to the Protestants, and Protestants are not speaking to Catholics. They had tried several times to invite each other, and they were always refused. Okay, one day we established a small Turkish cultural society. We invited both of them. Both the Protestant and the Catholic groups. And the Catholic bishop looked, this is a Muslim group, Oh, we don't have any problems with them, we can go. And the Protestants thought the same. And when they came together, they said, come on, we cannot come together if we had called each other. But Turks, which had nothing to do with our former problems, can be a good host here. Okay, you see, individual is becoming 10 individuals. We are not a huge minority there. I have about 10 friends who are working in Northern Ireland, who are bringing those people together. I was only a month ago. I was in Ireland, giving a speech about the importance of interfaith dialogue there, and both the bishops, Protestant and Catholic and the Methodist, were there all together, and they all said, if it was not for the Turkish Muslim 10 people, I wouldn't call them minority, here that invited us to the same table, we wouldn't be able to come together. Even an academic article was written about this experience of Turkish minority or 10 people making peace between the leaders. Okay, so individuals are on the way. I hope Ahmed, as an individual, will contribute not only to American and the Egyptian democracies, but also to the Turkish review that I am editing. We had the second issue here. I think some of
with the first issue here. Yes.
Okay. But I brought the second issue. What will you do? You will have to read both of them at the same time. Okay. Anybody who wants to contribute their views to Turkish review or to personally to me, their critiques, you are all welcomed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Turkey is an emerging power in the Middle East, and on the light of the new changes in the Middle East, the Arab Spring, as we call it, the revolutions, the changes in the regime, Turkey has become a kind of role model for the emerging democracies in the Middle East, hopefully. My point is that Turkey does not need to be a model, but Turkey's experience with its own democracy, with all kinds of its failures, mistakes, and successes, can be a good model for the Arabs to learn from. During this learning process, we will also, as the Turks, learn from the Arabs, basically. Some of the points that Turkish foreign policy is changing in the last decade are misunderstood in the West. Many people think that Turkey has turned its back to the West. Many people think that there is a shift of axis in the Turkish foreign policy. These are all mistakes. These are all emanating from a misunderstanding or disunderstanding of the new principles of Turkish foreign policy. These are the basic issues that I touched in my speech. I found the American audience quite interested, if not informative, but interested in the changes in the Middle East in general and in Turkey in particular. The 21st century has brought a new actor in international politics, the individual. Individual has never been more than a private soldier or an army general in foreign policy issues. The foreign policy actors were basically states and huge international companies. But in the 21st century, with the emergence of new communication mechanisms, individuals turned back to history, and small minorities can be more active than larger minorities and even the majorities in countries like the United States, if they can use the advantages of the new information technology. Niagara Foundation, as I observe it, is an end result of a determination of a human will to change the world to the good. The people here are a few number of people, but they are determined, they have the will to change the world, and they are well equipped by the technology and networking mechanisms. I believe that though they are outnumbered by many other minorities and the majority here in Illinois, the Turkish minority, a few people here, can make a change, because the world is going to be a world that will be shaped by small number of people who are well determined, well connected, and who have good networks. Niagara Foundation seems to be doing what very few people did in the Arab world in the United States.